The lobby smelled faintly of lemon polish and espresso, its marble floor gleaming under soft recessed lights, but Lily barely noticed. Her worn sneakers squeaked as she pushed the cleaning cart along, her head lowered so no one could see her red-rimmed eyes. The folded hospital bill trembled in her fist, the ink smudged where her tears had landed. She had begged the billing office for more time, pleaded until her throat burned, but the answer had been the same: no payment, no treatment. Her 8-year-old son Ethan needed surgery on his leg after last month's accident, and without it, the doctors warned his limp could become permanent. A deep voice carried across the lobby, "Careful there." She startled and glanced up, almost hitting her cart into a glass column. A man in a tailored charcoal suit stood a few feet away, holding a tablet. His dark hair was swept back, his watch probably cost more than her monthly rent, and his gaze was sharp, almost unreadable. Nobody knew him here. He had only started showing up last week, dressed too casually for a typical executive, but carrying an aura of quiet authority. The staff whispered theories: a consultant, maybe an auditor. Nobody guessed the truth. He was Mason Hale, the CEO of Hale Global Holdings, working undercover after a string of scandals had left him doubting his leadership. "Sorry, sir," Lily murmured, brushing her hair behind her ear. Her palms were damp, and she kept her voice soft, trying not to draw attention. Mason studied her for a beat longer than necessary, noting the frayed hem of her uniform, the loose threads at her sleeve. She moved like someone carrying invisible weights, her shoulders curling inward as if apologizing for taking up space. But it was her eyes that caught him, a quiet storm of exhaustion and defiance. "Don't worry about it," he said lightly, stepping aside. She nodded quickly and turned away, hiding the bill in her apron pocket. But Mason caught a glimpse of the heading before she tucked it away: "Past due urgent." Later, during lunch, Lily sat at the far corner of the break room with her duct-taped phone in hand, scrolling through bus schedules while nibbling on a single packet of crackers. Her stomach growled, but she'd saved the rest of her sandwich for Ethan. Mason walked past the door unnoticed until he heard a soft, broken sound like someone holding back sobs. He paused, leaning slightly against the wall, listening. "I can't lose the apartment, Mom," Lily whispered into the phone. "The fridge is almost empty. The landlord's knocking again. And now the hospital. I don't know what else to do." Mason clenched his jaw and moved on before she could spot him. That night, the city was damp with drizzle, neon reflections shimmering on the wet pavement. Lily waited at the bus stop under a flickering streetlight, holding a thrift store backpack patched at the corners. A cold wind tugged at her thin jacket, and she rubbed her arms for warmth. She counted the change in her palm, whispering the numbers under her breath, terrified she wouldn't have enough for the ride home. A sleek black car rolled past, slowing briefly, and Mason watched her through the tinted window. He was supposed to be heading to a private dinner uptown, but told his driver to keep going. Something about her haunted him: the quiet desperation, the bill, the phone call. 2 days later, he finally approached her. She was kneeling by the glass doors, scrubbing a stubborn stain, her hair falling loose around her face. Lily, right. Mason crouched slightly so she didn't have to crane her neck. She hesitated, startled that he knew her name. "Yes, sir. I overheard part of your call the other day," he admitted gently. "I hope you don't mind me saying this, but are you okay?" Her throat tightened. No one at work ever asked her that. "I'm fine," she lied automatically, brushing hair from her face, avoiding his gaze. "Just life stuff, everyone's got it. You're not alone in this," Mason said quietly, his tone softer than she expected. "If you need help," her spine stiffened, pride flaring beneath the exhaustion. "I'm not looking for charity." "I wasn't offering charity," he said, holding her gaze steadily. "Sometimes people need a hand, not a handout." Before she could respond, the receptionist called her name, breaking the moment. She stood quickly, tucking a loose strand behind her ear, and murmured a rushed thank you. Before hurrying away, that evening Lily returned to the hospital with Ethan, who leaned against her side, his small hand gripping her coat. His limp was more noticeable now, and the nurse explained again that they couldn't proceed without payment. Lily begged, tears slipping silently down her cheeks, but rules were rules. She sat on a cold hallway bench, hugging Ethan close, whispering apologies he didn't understand. And just as she thought she had reached the end of her strength, a familiar voice cut through the tension. Lily. She looked up to see Mason standing there, his expression unreadable, holding something in his hand. Her breath caught as he stepped closer, but before he spoke, the nurse interrupted, asking about Ethan's file. Mason hesitated, his jaw tightening, and glanced at Lily. She looked torn between hope and humiliation, unsure whether to speak or run. The hallway buzzed with distant voices, monitors beeping softly. The weight of the moment hung heavy between them. Mason's hand tightened around the folded document he carried, and for a moment, Lily thought she might collapse under the weight of the silence. The hum of the hospital lights above felt deafening. Ethan rested his head against her side, eyes half closed, too exhausted to care about anything beyond his mother's trembling arms around him. "I talked to the billing department," Mason said finally, his voice low but steady. "They're holding Ethan's file for 48 hours. Her lips parted in shock. You what? I'm not paying your bill for you," he clarified quickly, seeing her instinctive flare of pride. "But I know people here. I got them to delay things. Gives us time to figure this out, together." Lily blinked rapidly, struggling to process his words. Nobody ever used the word together with her. It had always been her against the world, against landlords, overdue notices, bus schedules, and the relentless churn of bills she couldn't cover. "I can't let you," she started, but her voice broke. She clenched her jaw, forcing herself to swallow the lump in her throat. "I can't accept something I can't repay." Mason hesitated, then crouched so he was eye level with Ethan, who clutched a small, battered action figure in his hand. "Then don't think about repaying me. Think about paying it forward when you can." Something in his tone, quiet, steady, unpushy, disarmed her. For the first time in months, Lily exhaled without realizing she'd been holding her breath. The next day, Mason requested to meet her after her shift in the small cafe across the street. She almost didn't go, convinced she'd feel out of place in her faded jeans and thrifted coat. But when she walked in, Mason was seated by the window, nursing a simple black coffee, his tie undone, sleeves rolled up. He wasn't the man from the lobby, right now, not the polished executive, but someone unexpectedly human. "I pulled some strings," he said as she sat down hesitantly. "The hospital has a charity care program for situations like yours. Most people don't even know it exists because the paperwork's a nightmare. I can help you apply." She blinked, stunned. "Charity care?" He nodded. "It's not charity in the way you think. It's your right, and Ethan qualifies. But you'll need tax documents, bank statements, proof of income, all the things they make deliberately difficult to discourage people from applying." Lily stared at him, her hands clutching the coffee cup the barista had just set down. The steam fogged the window slightly, softening the city lights outside. "You're really doing this?" she whispered. "You're not invisible, Lily," Mason said softly, his gaze steady. "Someone should have seen you a long time ago." Her throat tightened at that, and she quickly brushed away a tear before it could fall. The following week was a blur of paperwork, signatures, and long phone calls. Mason spent his evenings walking her through forms over takeout coffee at a corner table in the hospital cafe, his tablet balanced between them. He wasn't always patient. He got frustrated when the hospital dragged its feet, when documents mysteriously went missing, when calls went unanswered. But Lily noticed the way his jaw tightened when things went wrong, and the way he didn't give up even when it would have been easier to. On the 7th day, she got the call. Ethan's surgery was approved. The hospital's charity fund would cover the entire cost. She sat in the staff hallway, phone pressed to her ear, the world spinning as the news sank in. Her knees gave out, and she slid against the wall, laughing and crying all at once. When she told Mason, he only smiled faintly, leaning against the doorframe with his hands in his pockets. "Told you we'd figure it out," he said simply. Ethan's surgery took place 2 weeks later. It wasn't without complications, and Lily spent every second outside the operating room, pacing with her duct-taped phone clutched tightly, whispering silent prayers to no one in particular. When the doctor finally emerged with a tired smile and said, "He's going to be okay," Lily broke down entirely. Mason was there, leaning against the wall, watching quietly, giving her space but staying close enough that she didn't feel alone. Months later, Lily returned to work, but life was different now. Ethan walked without pain. Their apartment was still theirs, and she'd managed to put some savings aside. Mason's undercover project ended, and the truth about who he really was came out. The CEO everyone whispered about, the man nobody had guessed. She confronted him one evening after her shift, standing at the lobby doors, the city lights spilling in behind her. "You could have just signed a check and walked away," she said softly. Mason smiled, hands in his pockets. "Would have been easier, sure, but then I wouldn't have met you. Wouldn't have remembered why I built this company in the first place." Lily's lips curved, half smile, half tear. "Ethan calls you his hero," she murmured. Mason shook his head. "He's got the wrong person. You're the one who fought for him when everything was stacked against you." That night, Lily walked home beneath the soft spring rain, Ethan's hand in hers, street lamps glowing gold on wet pavement. Her shoes were still worn, her jacket still thin, and the fridge wasn't always full, but life felt lighter, the air sweeter. Sometimes, she thought, it isn't the grand gestures that change a life. It's being seen. It's someone stopping long enough to notice the folded hospital bill in your hand and deciding to stay when they could have kept walking. One quiet act of generosity had rerouted her path, and she would carry that forward always.